Thank you, Spencer. We have 5 experts, so we're going to go straight in, trying to work out what the future of connected, multi-screen TV is, where the money is, what's going to happen to the content, how as consumers we're going to engage with it. And I just want to start in at the deep end. I want to get your visions, team, on how the TV experience is going to be different from now in 5 years, say. And I'm going to start with Mario Queiroz, who's VP Product Management at Google TV, leading the deployment of the Google TV service. Where do you see things, Mario?
Okay, so as Nikesh talked about yesterday, the TV obviously has been evolving for a long time, and in building Google TV, which is basically bringing Android into the living room, just as Android was brought to mobile devices, we've been doing it in the context of how we see the evolution of the TV industry. Many of you are more experts in that area than we've been, but we're learning. And we see TV having gone from a few network channels in the 70s and 80s to hundreds of channels after that with the advent of cable TV. Some people thought that network TV was going to be dead with cable TV, but that didn't happen. Cable TV was additive to the networks. And now we see TV going from hundreds of channels to millions of channels. And we believe that this is also additive as opposed to being something that's going to replace linear television. The web is enabling this to happen. And we play a role in that effort. We're not playing every role. It's an ecosystem. And we are both focusing on helping to open up the living room to new content so that these YouTube original channels, for example, can get to TV, as well as helping users find content from the millions of channels.
So do you see YouTube as becoming maybe a cable player in this?
We see YouTube being a player amongst others. So we think of Google TV almost being a shopping center. It's a platform where YouTube is a department store with some of its own content, some of the content that YouTube licenses. Netflix is another department store. And then there are Turner, for example, who is just up here. They have some of their own apps on TV. So in terms of where TV is going, we believe that consumers are going to literally have millions of options in terms of the availability of content. And one of the roles that Google wants to play is to help the user find, the viewer find the most relevant content, whether it comes from linear TV or from the web, because both are going to be part of that answer.
Okay. Rich Riley, Senior VP and MD of Yahoo, EMEA. Content company and technology company, bit of both. How do you see things changing over the next 5 years?
Sure. Well, we're screen agnostic, first of all, so we just want to provide our personalized content experiences on whichever screen a user is in front of. And it'll take about 7 years, we think, till most TVs will be IP enabled. But in 5 years, there'll be a good number of them. So there's 2 ways that we want to participate. One is to actually be embedded into the TV experience. And so we have something called Yahoo Connected TV, which is currently on 10 million devices and is an app experience designed to enhance whatever's on TV. And the other is a second screen experience. And so we're already seeing data that says over 20% of people, while they're watching TV, are also on another connected device. And so we have an app called Into Now, which is a Shazam for TV startup that we acquired that listens to the TV and then brings down relevant content to the television show or program that you're watching, and then also has Facebook, Twitter, et cetera, so people can create communities around that programming. So both embedded in the TV and then also that second screen experience we think are both important.
David Kenny is on the board of Yahoo.
Yes.
Until recently, president of Akamai Technologies, now senior advisor there. So you see things kind of on the zeros and ones passing through the cables as well as the content side. So taking this overview, what's going to change?
Yep, so if I pull back a level to the infrastructure, I'm a big believer in cloud computing and the fact that that enables all screens to be thin clients. Televisions are never going to have the processing power of a computer. Neither do tablets. And I think that as you get to cloud computing, all the content can go in the cloud. And then maybe there are millions of channels, or really maybe there are none, because you don't need channels to program in any sort of time. People can build their own systems, Or their machines can get smart to build their own systems based on prior experience and also based on what their friends are doing, because social can also help curate. So I think you're going to find clouds curated by devices for people, and it's going to be much more of an individual experience. I don't think we'll see very much programming in time slots except for live events.
Does this mean that box in the living room becomes less and less relevant as we're engaging with that cloud-based content on all sorts of other screens?
I think the box in the living room is actually quite important if it's connected to the right software. I think you've got a handful of software systems that are enabling it. Android is one of them. The Apple iOS, we'll see what happens. And I think we haven't yet seen what Silk's going to do out of Amazon. So you've got a few systems that are going to feed those devices, which will be very smart. There's a lot of intermediary players that I think are going to struggle to find their role. Either you're going to have great content that gets programmed or a really smart device. The middlemen, I think, are going to be the people who struggle here.
Guillaume Lacroix, are you one of the middlemen who are going to struggle? You're from France Telecom Orange, dealing with partnerships and content partnerships in particular. Where do you fit in?
Hopefully not. I think that there is one area where we think we will still be there in a few years, which is the network. And without the network, none of what we heard would happen. So we think we have a fairly nice position to hold there. Now, obviously, we would like to be more than a dump pipe, and we see ourselves as the gateway for the consumer to the communications and the entertainment. And obviously, if we're no longer the gateway, we've missed something. Now, how do we achieve that? There's no reason why the operator could not do what people who don't have the network do. We can miss something, but there's no reason we couldn't do. And what we are trying to achieve is to make sure that we remain the trusted, the simple provider to the customer. A lot of studies show that that digital world has created a lot of confusion in consumers, and that a lot of them actually are looking for ways to simplify their lives. And a lot of us actually are trying to do that, from Google to Yahoo and ourselves. And one of the key to remaining the key provider for the customer is to be this trusted and simple provider.
Now, we're not just European businesses or American businesses represented here. There's a whole other side of the world that doesn't have the internet penetration of the West, and that's the Middle East. Sam Barnett, General Manager, Chief Operating Officer of the MBC Group, which is the biggest media group, I think, in the Middle East, 100 million people watching your channels, based in Dubai. Things are a bit different in the Arab world, so are you facing the same short-term threats as these guys, or the opportunities?
Well, at the risk of being the proverbial dinosaur, I think that over the next 5 years, television will be in the Middle East, much as it is today, for a number of reasons. Now, in the Middle East, virtually all television comes off a satellite, and it's free. So as long as you have a set-top box, you can watch all 600, 700 channels for free. And content which you'd pay for in Europe or America is available free. News channels, movie channels, kids channels, even some sports channels. So the economic equation where people cut their cable and go to the internet is less stark in the Middle East, because a lot of the content that people want to watch is already there. And as a free-to-air provider, we're already fighting in this red ocean, competing against 600 channels and the rest, and it's free. Secondly, Lucas was, in the last discussion, was talking about the 15-year-old in Brazil, Russia, India, wanting to watch Coldplay. Now, my take is that the 15-year-old in Riyadh and Cairo doesn't want to watch Coldplay. They want to watch Nancy Ajram or the local singers, and they want to watch local content. Now, one of the ways that TV will change over the next 5 years is, as the ad market grows, that more money is available to develop professional local content. So you'll see less imports from the West and much more local content. They may still watch parts of it on YouTube, etc., but it will be more localized. And there's the various other special dimensions to the Middle East. The reason why people use satellites, the satellite TV emerged as a model, was because it avoided the clutches of the various ministries of information. People could put content up on the satellite, and anyone from Morocco through to Iraq could watch it, and no one of the individual regulators could control it. Now, if you're playing in the internet world, you are regulated by domestic governments. So Mubarak would have been able to switch you off, and did switch you off during the Egyptian revolution. You are under the Saudi firewall. You are basically constrained. Now, much of the time that doesn't matter, but at the margins and when people really want to watch you and when things are kicking off, then people go to satellite TV. When Gaddafi was shot, people took the picture on the mobile phone, but the 6 million Libyans watched it on satellite TV. They didn't hear about it on Twitter or watch it on the internet, because TV is the most pervasive technology and will remain so for the future. And lastly, and perhaps less interestingly, the infrastructure is still way behind what you'd expect in this part of the world. So in Egypt, 30% of the population have internet access. In Yemen, 50% of the population are illiterate. So it's not clear how they're going to be accessing all the menus and doing all the exciting things that we've been talking about for the last 2 days. TV is accessible, it's cheap, and it will remain dominant for the next 5 years.
So if you're so able to broadcast what you want without governments stopping you, why don't they jam your signal? Well,
they try. So in the last 10 months, the title of this discussion was Screen Wars, and I thought that was an advised term for the Middle East. Various governments have tried to jam our signal. So the Libyans will shoot a signal up to the satellite and try and take out the news channels. And they did this, but fortunately there are a number of satellites, so you can move your channel around and escape. What we eventually did, when you shoot up a jamming signal, it takes out the whole transponder. So it takes out 8 channels. So we just put our Arabia next to Libyan state TV, and so people were forced to, at that point we had a buffer and we were kind of protected.
You're a gorilla. That's great. So we're here to talk about who wins in a time when there are screens everywhere. So we learned recently that Steve Jobs decided that he'd cracked connected TV. He'd worked out the solution to this thing that's been bothering all of us, and we're waiting for Apple to launch its product. I just wondered if any of you can kind of guess how Steve Jobs may have solved connected TV. What does the man from Google think?
I think your guess is as good as mine. We're focused on the things that we think we do well and that we can add value in. As I said, when you have access to 80,000, 100,000 film titles and TV episodes from your connected TV, the most important thing is to help you find something really relevant to watch. So if every time you sit in front of the TV, you don't waste any time getting to something cool and interesting, that's the problem. A problem that we think is a really important problem to be solved that we're working on. If Apple or some other company comes out with great technology, competition will help.
But is it technology, or the problem surely is discovery? If there's 1 million channels out there, so what is the solution to discovering the programming that is right for you?
Well, I think the analogy of the web is similar. The web became so large at one point that search became very relevant and recommendations became very relevant. And I think on TV we've gotten to that point, and we're going to get to that point really, really quickly. There are lots of different aggregators. There's we talked about Netflix and Hulu, Amazon, YouTube, and so forth here. And I think the user doesn't necessarily want to be going to all these different silos of content. We want to give the user the best content regardless of where it comes from, and then they can spend time enjoying it.
Yeah, Akamai works with everybody, including Apple. I can't share their secrets, but there's not a single answer.
Just a little secret.
All I would say is I think you're misguided to look for a single solution. Jobs in the culture he created was obsessed with every part of that experience. There's a reason the apps download so quickly. There's a reason why it's intuitive. There's a reason why it's tactile. I think that there will be no single cracking the code on television, but it's everything. It's the infrastructure, and then it's the interface, and it's discovery for some, it's social curation for some. There's a lot of pieces, and there's room for differentiated experiences. So I'm sure there will be an Apple version. I'm sure it will be great for hundreds of millions, billions of people, but not all, because there's more than one answer here. But it will be one with attention to detail at every single step. That's what you'll see out of that company.
Yeah, I would agree. I think consumers will have more choice, and so the companies that provide a superior consumer experience will, be more successful than the others, because the consumer will get to decide where they spend their time on the TV screen.
But they need to be informed about which of the million shows at that moment are worth watching. Inon Krai's, former CEO of Endemol, the biggest independent production company, was saying at conferences like this that whoever cracks social TV will become the richest person in the world, because there's so much advertising revenue resting on this. So, what do you see as the workable way of solving social, getting to know what your cool friends are watching now? Is anybody cracking it?
I'd say I can give one idea around that. Is a lot of experience has been done around putting more information on the TV screen, and I'm not sure that has proven very, very efficient so far. And I'm a lot more convinced by multi-device experience. And there are in France, I think, 50% of people who say that they do other things while they watch TV, either with their phones or laptop or on tablets. And I see a lot around the TV screen remaining the screen where you watch, and another screen being a screen where you actually interact either with the program or with your friends or with your community.
So we assume there's going to be a second screen. The conversation about the program in real time currently seems to be on Twitter, but lots of people are experimenting with new platforms with boxes that embed. Is this real-time conversation going to be in the TV set, whatever that is, or is it going to be in some third-party site? Is it going to be on Facebook?
Could be both, for sure. I think, the TV experience, you have to be careful how much it's interrupted. So we're very early days in this stuff. There's a very small installed base, but how much can you interrupt a TV experience, which is sort of a lean-back viewing experience, or how much do you want that to be on the second screen? So a lot of that could end up being on the second screen. But I think models like we use on the PC, for example, we're a large news provider, and we have it where the articles you read post to your Facebook wall so your friends can see what you've read and you can see what they've read. And those same kind of models could certainly work with TV content, just like they do with text content on the web. So I think it'll be multiple different ways, but I think some of the PC models will evolve into the TV nicely.
So how does a company like Yahoo stay relevant when we have an infinite number of choices of what we watch, and maybe we're being guided to that by our social networks as well as algorithms? Why should they come through you rather than any startup?
Similar reason they would on the PC. So we have 700 million users every month. We want to provide a very personalized experience for each of them. So many of those users, we would know what their interests are, what they aren't. They've taken time in many cases to log in or configure a Yahoo experience, and that experience can seamlessly move to the TV, where we help aggregate, use technology to filter through the billions of choices out there and deliver what's personally relevant to that user.
So give us an example of how that smart technology that you have that the rest of the world doesn't have is improving that journey.
Well, today on the PC, for example, we serve over 40 million different home pages every day. And our vision is that every person on the internet should have a fully personalized experience down to the individual level. So we shouldn't all read the same newspaper every day because we have very different interests. And so it takes a lot of technology and really computing power to get all of that content and information into the cloud, onto a grid where you can then at scale deliver those individualized experiences. And we think that model can evolve to across the multiple screens, so smartphones, tablets, TVs, et cetera.
So is this an important bit of the future of Yahoo's business? There's been a bit of concern about which direction Yahoo goes.
Oh, that's our core vision is, deeply personalized digital media experience.
What does this mean for the advertisers?
It means that we'll have more engaged consumers because what the experience they're having has been tailored personally to them. We'll have more information on the user so we can do a better job of targeting advertisers. So it's very beneficial for advertisers as well.
How's Google going to compete with that?
Well, I think, first of all, we can't presume that the 6 or 7 people who are here on the stage are going to have the answer for this. I think these companies, we think our company are doing some interesting things and some useful things for users, but we also need to open up the television experience and the multiple screen experiences to the hundreds of thousands or millions of developers and creative people who are out there. And so not only, I think, is it important for us to personalize and make things relevant on our own properties, but for example, through bringing Android into the living room, one of our goals is to open up the application framework, just like there's an open app framework on mobile phones, and a one-person startup or a one-person movie producer can bring their content to a mobile phone. That same person can bring their content to TV. And that leads to interesting things, like one of the popular applications that are being downloaded onto people's Google TVs right now is something called Classy Fireplace. Company created a fireplace screensaver for your living room, and it, it's a fireplace, and the wood crackles and all. And another interesting application is from a company called Queiroz that has the HD rights to concerts. And so they have a huge library of concerts. If you want to watch the Bob Marley concert from 1980, whatever, then you go on there, you rent that concert for $2.99, and you're entertained for the next 90 minutes. So really, I think it will be just as much the developers of the world and the content creators of the world having an open platform to bring their content freely into the living room and onto multiple screens as it is what we're going to figure out ourselves.
But you've also opened the door to the porn industry. So Vivid TV is now able to operate through Google TV, which made a bit of press recently. If you open the door to everyone, isn't there a risk that you damage the core brand?
Well, the web is open to everyone, right? And I think a lot of brands were actually became much stronger and thrived on the web rather than having been hurt by that openness. I think consumers are going to choose the right things for them to watch, and we think this will be the case not only on mobile and tablets but also on TV.
Well, you're talking about the advertisers, and I think they're a little bit missing from this. My first 20 years was on that side. The advertisers don't really care about the screens. The advertisers want to buy audience, and Pampers wants to buy new mothers. General Motors wants to buy one audience for Cadillac and a different audience for Chevrolet, and you want to surround them. And if they're using multiple screens, it's the same person. So I think ultimately the data really matters here. And getting down to an audience and being able to engage with that audience across all their screens in a way that really adds value to them is going to be important. And I think the whole basis of the way advertising is bought is increasingly becoming audience-based, not impression-based. That's a huge change. And those who are building all these pieces have a role, but the infrastructures have to connect the data, because ultimately the advertisers want to connect with people. The screens are not so relevant.
So if we're giving away a lot of data about where we've previously been, what our social group is recommending to us, how can this data be used in useful new ways?
Well, it can be used by the advertisers to follow those people around, and also see how their friends are influencing, so you can enter the conversation, so that the messaging itself is not a 30-second interruption of television, because we've been interrupting television for a long time in ways that are not helpful or useful to people, but instead really give them things that their friends are talking about that engage in that conversation. And you're beginning to see more ad units come like that really embed in the conversation and follow people across all their screens. Not just in social, but I believe in all filmed entertainment, you can find room for a much more relevant personal ad unit. And this work has to be done. Advertising has not kept up with the innovations that have happened on the content side or the distribution side.
So Guillaume, you know where your users are, you know their location, you know their history. What data are you collecting based on the content they're consuming?
Operators in general have not been very good at using that information, and other companies who actually should know less than us do a lot more with the data. And one of the reasons is that there is a very strong relationship with the operator and the consumer that could be damaged, and sometimes just the regulation does not allow it. But we have a lot of trust from our customers. We have been carrying conversations, call detail records for a very long time, and it's very important to our customers to know that we are not going to use that, and to a large extent they are more they would accept things from players that they would not accept from their operators. So we are very cautious. Obviously, we are using some of that information on a sign-in basis, but the damage that would be caused to a company like Orange of wrongful use of that type of information or leak of that information. You know that there are now and then companies that have credit cards information disclosed on the internet and so on. That would be very, very bad for us. So that's a very strong asset for us, and we need to make sure that this trust is not damaged.
But don't you agree it can change? If people see that data is giving them good programming, good value, messages that are relevant to them, won't they opt in? I agree you can't just steal it. And I agree with the trust, but people could trust you.
Sure. Well, so it means, I'm just saying, we have had more information than many other companies for a long time, and we have not been the first ones to use that information. And the reason is really linked to this special relationship that we have with our customers who are not an audience. They are customers who actually pay a bill every month and have I guess a stronger relationship with our customers. You can call Orange with a complaint. You know, we have a lot of obligations linked to the fact that we provide that link to the outside world.
So I want to ask Sam, as you know, you do happen to have 600 channels and a 45% audience share, so you could be in the firing line in this revolution, but maybe you don't have to panic quite yet. So who else on the stage do you see as potentially winning or being undermined by these changes? Do we need the aggregators like Yahoo? Is Google going to compete against a socially integrated platform like Facebook, which is recommending based on your social graph?
I know that in Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia is the highest per capita usage of YouTube in the world. And I think part of that is because many of the people in the Middle East have struggled to have a voice for many years, and the internet provides that, YouTube provides that. So I suspect that there will be a huge increase in the usage of these networks, and I suspect there'll be room for many people to play. I don't think it's going to diminish TV. It hasn't diminished TV elsewhere in the world, and I don't think it will diminish in the Middle East. But I see in a market which is growing throughout the recession, has kept on growing, and sits on the world's oil resources, you are going to see growth, and I think there's room for everybody here to have a very good business, and I think that's why lots of people are coming down to the Middle East and setting up. As I don't see things being switched off.
So David, let's take a fantasy situation. Let's say you're appointed CEO of Yahoo. How do you take that business forward to make the most of all these opportunities you're hearing about here?
I think Rich should talk about Yahoo, not me.
I'll ask Rich separately.
Seriously, I'm a director there. I can't really answer that question.
No, but if you were running a big business like that, what do they need to think about?
I'm going to decline. Thank you.
What would you say, Rich, if you were running Yahoo?
Ask me one more time. You lost me on the CEO part.
If you're the CEO of Yahoo, what are you going to do?
So you've got, a few billions still to play with.
Yeah.
But it's not at all clear that the current business model of Yahoo is going to be sustainable in this world where there are billions of screens and people choosing content based on aggregation rather than destination. How does Yahoo survive?
Yeah, well, Yahoo's going to keep keep creating what I was talking about earlier, deeply personal experiences across multiple screens, and continuing to help advertisers target those audiences, like David was saying. So, you know, advertising dollars continue to rapidly shift to digital, where we can be more personalized, more targeted, and I think as Yahoo's model of creating those experiences across multiple screens is going to continue to succeed as more and more people spend more and more time on internet-connected devices. That's a very powerful tailwind for the entire industry, and I think Yahoo and lots of other companies will thrive.
It's a growth story.
Absolutely.
So there were some people suggesting that there was an offer to buy Yahoo last year or so. Can you add value to the price that was offered then by Microsoft, do you think?
I would just say that, you know, we have 700 million users every month. That number's growing. We want more users spending more time, and to continue to help advertisers message to those users effectively. And those are all those elements are growing and have enormous potential. So I think the future of Yahoo is very, very bright.